Hyrox, the good, the bad, and the frustrating. That's what this video is all about. Now, this video originally was intended to be my reflection video of having completed 10 Hyrox events, and that's where I'm at right now. I've got 10 in my wake, I've got one more booked in the future, and the idea of this video is to reflect on Hyrox and how it has changed, how Hyrox has changed me as an athlete, as a person, and some of the more recent frustrations that I have felt. Now, before I go any further, this video comes with a bit of a disclaimer. What I say in this video is based upon my own experience and opinions gauged from them. Okay? I am not going to reference any numbers because I know that winds a few of you up, but I am going to point out some of the more obvious frustrations that you guys and myself have been feeling over the last 12 months or so. Before I get into any of that, rest assured that I am a Hyrox fan. I have done 10 events. I would not have done 10 events if I did not enjoy the sport, if I did not enjoy the franchise, if I did not enjoy the experience. Everything about it is fantastic to a point, but it could be made better. And when I'm talking about the sort of more negative things, they are with the hope that those things can be sorted out and make the sport fantastic for everyone. So before we get started, I have now done 10 Hyrox events, and I've taken part in all of the full distance categories, all the doubles, all the pros, all the opens. I've not taken part in a relay race yet, and that's probably more to do with the fact that I can't find 4 people that would want to do it with me. So I just wanted to tell you sort of where I've been. The very last season, I was able to do all 5 in the United Kingdom, and I had a great year of racing. It was very much a roller coaster of a season, but you always look back retrospectively at them. Nostalgic is probably the best word. And then you take what you've learned from those events and you put it into your training for the very next season, which starts in October. Okay, so I think it's important to start this video on the good points about Hyrox. Now, there are loads of great aspects to a Hyrox event, and I think I'm just going to pull a few out, because if I was to try and list them all, I would go on all day. So first and foremost, the event. The core event, the actual race day itself, these are spectacular. They are so well run. Front of house on these days is exemplary. So what I mean by this is there is so much going on a Hyrox day. Everything from sort of the layout of these arenas, the sheer volume of kit required, the technical aspects of timing everyone in and out of all the various zones and sort of compiling that in real time, to the sort of the more human aspect of it, the volunteers and the head judges and all of the representatives that show up on Hyrox day. These guys really do go above and beyond to make these days great for all of the competitors. I've got no complaints about front of house whatsoever. I've always had, in all of my 10 events, a really good time. Why do people want to do Hyrox? I think the easiest answer here is accessibility, right? It is something that is all grunt, no skill. And this is how it was described to me a little while back. And that's kind of true. You don't need to learn anything to do this sport. You just have to show up, and the only variable in that equation is how fit and how well you have trained for that event, and that will obviously have a bearing on your time. Now, when you first do this sport, the same thing happens to just about everybody, whether you do good or whether you do bad. You want to come back and do better. This hooks you hard, and you go away and you train and you train and you train and you try to come back and have another go. That's what happened to me back in 2022 when I did my first one at Manchester. I was completely humbled, had a great time, but was nowhere near as fit as I thought I was. So I made plans to come back after a period of training for it. And that was 3 years ago, unbelievably. And that feeling is still inside me. That sort of addictive trait, that thing that hooks you, is still in me. And I can understand why everybody else wants to keep coming back to the sport. So one of the things I noticed from my first Hyrox, maybe through to my second or third Hyrox, were the changes that were happening to me. And this further lends itself to those addictive qualities. One, I became a much fitter person. I noticed that my fitness levels, my anaerobic and aerobic and even strength work were all doing much better. And that's fantastic to see. But two, I was physically changing. My physique looked better. In fact, it looked better than it has in my entire life. As a guy in his mid-40s, seeing abdominal muscles is really quite something to celebrate. If there's any other blokes out there in their mid-40s and they can see their abdominals, you will understand it's not as easy as it is in your 20s. And this is a direct result of committing to the training and committing to the diet. And you do these things a lot more when you know you've got a Hyrox at the end of the road, whether it be 2, 3, 4 months down the line, you commit that much harder. And that's one of the great things that Hyrox does for you. Now, one of the great things about Hyrox is the Hyrox community itself. Now, I partake in quite a few different franchises, and there isn't one amongst them that is quite as active as the Hyrox community. The people that sort of frequent Hyrox are all similarly wired. They all want the very same thing. They want to compete, they want to get better, they want to train, they just want to be a better version of themselves. And that is something nearly everybody who takes part in Hyrox has in common. And it's that one thing that meshes us all together. When I see sort of people jibber-jabbering on the various forums online, you can see that everyone is stumbling over themselves to help other people, whether it be a question or you know, they've got something to show, or there's a picture of them pulling a funny face at a race. It is a fantastic little community to be a part of, and that is a massive bonus to this particular sport. So let's get on to the filling in this sandwich. Some of the negative parts, and there's two main negatives as I see them. Remember, own opinion based on experience. And the first one, I recently did a video about, a bit of a ranty video, about its biggest problem to date, and that is the popularity problem. It is a terrible problem to have, being so popular that you sell out and make a ton of money, but the sort of side effect of that happening is leaving lots of people out, and this is where I find myself. And after sort of committing to this particular sport for the last 3 years, and sort of feeling now that I might not get to do it anymore, is really a tough pill to swallow. So why is this happening? Let's just focus on the why. I've sort of broken this down into why people might want to start doing a Hyrox event. I sort of suggested this at the beginning. When you start, you take part, you want to better your time, whether you do better or worse. So that creates this reoccurring customer, but that keeps coming back, and I'm one of these. So those guys are continuously trying to sign up. Now over here, you've got a bunch of new people, and they are being sold that Hyrox is the next great thing and they should do it. And all the marketing and social media and all the pictures and videos, everything is being thrust on them online to make them want to come and do it too. So with every event that's put on, there is a new cohort of newbies that want to come and take part. So they come, and suddenly the sport is not big enough, right? So they put on an additional day, and everyone gets to do it another year, and those two bubbles of people are both bigger again, and so suddenly 2 days sells out, and they've still got a problem. So they push it to 3, and this problem is going to continue to happen until it reaches sort of a plateau. But we don't know where that is yet. For all we know, Hyrox could put on a week-long event, and they could still sell every single ticket. Now, where there is a real particular bugbear is with the affiliated program. Way back when Hyrox started, they decided they would generate some passive income by selling affiliations to gyms, allowing them to put on Hyrox events, use branding. But one of those little perks was a 48-hour early access for their members to buy tickets. Now in those days, in the early days, it did not matter. Nowadays, however, it does. It has created this divide right down the middle, where you've got the haves and the have-nots, the privileged and the underprivileged. Adding this into something so desirable is only ever going to create contention and divide. So you've got these people that have this 48-hour access, right? And like I said, in the old days, it didn't really matter. But the affiliated gym program has expanded and expanded and expanded. The problem is now that there are more members in the affiliated gyms than there are Hyrox tickets in events. So inevitably, they've had to cap that at some unknown number. The exact number seems to float around and they never disclose it. So we are now left with a ballot, and it's not a whole ballot for everybody, no. Obviously the 48-hour access codes, they will get sold first. So a massive chunk of tickets goes to them. Now the ballot, it's selling what's left. So we're proper picking over the bones here. When you introduce a ballot though, there comes a few additional problems. First of all, you will start to attract different types of people. First, the have a go type. You see this a lot in the London Marathon. Oh, I'll just have a go. 2, ticket taps, the ones that will enter loads of times trying to get tickets that they then can sell at a higher price to people that are quite desperate for a ticket, and people will pay it. 3, you get the leftovers from the people from the gym affiliates. The ones that didn't quite make the cap, they're going to be in the ballot as well. And finally, there is the rest of us. So there is a massive amount of people for a small amount of tickets. And to make matters worse, they did not cap it to 1 entry per person. You could enter many different categories many times. So I think Hyrox have painted themselves into a corner with the gym affiliate 48-hour codes. And what I mean by this is that in the early days, they started to sell affiliations to gyms with this perk, this 48-hour access perk. And the gyms in turn have sold memberships to people, telling them that if they join their gym, if they join their Hyrox affiliated gym, they will be able to get Hyrox tickets 48 hours before anybody else. And this is the problem. They are not realistically going to be able to back out of that without there being a big backlash. So I didn't want to leave this subject without touching on entitlement and FOMO. Now, the various groups that are all signing up to Hyrox, we're talking about the newbies, we're talking about the returning customers, and we're talking about the gym affiliate members that get the 48-hour access codes. Each of these groups will feel entitled for a different reason. And by entitled, I mean they think they deserve a ticket more than anybody else. So let's talk about each of those respective groups as to why each of those might feel entitled. So the newcomer, right? Let's start at the beginning. Everyone was a first timer once. These guys have been seduced by the adverts. They want to come and have a go at Hyrox. And they're probably being blocked out by people that are returning customers. In their minds, they're like, well, you've already had a go. I now want to go. So that's how they feel entitled. Now, returning customers, and I'm one of these, I've invested a lot of time and effort historically into Hyrox and Hyrox events. I've given them loads of my money, and as such, that makes me feel entitled to a ticket. And finally, then you've got the gym affiliates who essentially sold an entitlement, right? They are told that they can get access to tickets before everybody else. So they are expecting a ticket no matter what. So entitlement plays a massive part in people's motivation for wanting to sign up. One of Hyrox's ongoing and biggest frustrations for, say, customers is the communication side of things. Now, this is a super simple problem to fix. Ultimately, what happens is if you've got anything wrong with your event, if you're injured or deferred or you need to cancel or this or that, and you need to talk to someone at Hyrox in their customer service division, the only avenue to do this is an email address. Now, you might as well be slingshotting your email into the Grand Canyon at this point.
Good Lord, how you frustrate me, Leonard!
And this to me is a sort of a lack of resources on the sort of customer services end, right? You would expect there to be a room of people answering emails all day long, but I suspect that's not the case. You would likely got people that are doing other jobs that dip in and out of the emails as and when they can. And this is made more obvious when an event weekend comes up. You need more people answering the emails and the communications as an event weekend comes up, because there are more and more issues that are very time sensitive because they will be related to that weekend. There's no point answering them on a Monday if it's about an event on a Saturday, is it? Yeah, and the same people seem to pop up on the forums saying, oh, this is because they have an event on this weekend. Yes, okay, so either those people that are answering the emails are going to the event and can't answer their emails, or there's simply not enough people answering the emails. You would expect there to be a surge as each event comes up, and you would expect that surge to be answered by the appropriate amount of resource on that end. It's such a simple problem to fix. Just take a little bit of money from your massive social media budget and put it into communications. Your customer service will go through the roof, and people will be a lot happier and a lot more reassured that their purchase from you is being well looked after. So this video was always going to be just a retrospective look back at the time that I've been competing and the things that I've noticed about the sport. I think it's always pointed out to me when I have one of these little talks to camera about it, that Hyrox is a business, not a sport, but it's sold as a sport. And it doesn't ever reference that on the billboards or the glowing screens or the sort of, it's always referred to as a sport. His sport, her sport, our sport. That's how it's referred to. And that's what I want it to be. And the best way for that to happen is for them to level the playing field on ticket sales, put on more and more events, as so more people that want to take part can take part. It's about finding pragmatic solutions to the problems they have today rather than knee-jerk reactions to the last event. A little bit of business analyst and project management won't go amiss, and improving the communications in the customer service department would go a million miles towards making Hyrox a much better organisation, certainly here in the UK. This was never meant to be a moaning video. It was always going to be a retrospective sort of observation of the last 10 events. I've not focused on any one thing, any one location, any one venue. It was simply about the sport in itself and how I feel about it now, having competed 10. Okay, so that was the good, the bad and the frustrating. Hyrox has been all three to me. But the good is still shining the brightest. It's very easy to get frustrated at the sign-up issues and that sort of stuff. But when you inevitably get a ticket, you go and compete, none of that matters. All you're there to do is to try your hardest and do your best. Like I said earlier in the video, everybody that takes part in a Hyrox event is there for the same reason. They are there to improve themselves and to test themselves. And that's something we all have in common, and it's something that makes us all great. This video wasn't supposed to be a negative video, neither was my last video. I'm a very pro Hyrox person and I am an advocate for the sport. So I just want to thank you all for watching and the continued support to the channel. If you could give it a subscribe, I think the button's down here somewhere, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you very much guys. I will see you in my next video soon. Mart out.